right, here we go. All right, buongiorno everybody, and welcome to another Monday morning coffee chat. I've got my coffee and I've got a friend with me. So good morning. This is my friend Anastasia in Greece. How's it going, Anastasia?
Hi, hello. Well, okay. We're doing okay considering the situation. Yeah, we're okay.
So how
We're
do you say
okay.
good morning in Greek?
Sorry?
Good morning in Greek is what, Kalimera?
Kalimera. Yeah. Although now it's evening here, but still in Kalimera.
Is that just always the greeting?
Well, it's good morning, but you can say yasas. Yasas is both a greeting and a goodbye, and you're always correct with it. No matter how many people you have in front of you, or if you want to be polite or not, it's always right. The right word to say. Yasas.
All right, so it's like ciao.
Yeah, more or less. It's also very polite. I mean, people you don't know, people you respect a lot, you can say it. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So just before we started, you were mentioning that Greece has now gone into lockdowns, but where are you in Greece these days?
I am in Thessaloniki or Salonika, it's the same. And that's the second largest city of Greece, and it's in the north of Greece. I mean, we're still in the south of Europe, but it's the north of Greece. Yeah, that's where I am. And it's a city on the water. We have a beautiful waterfront. Just came back from there and went for a walk. I mean, it is lockdown, but still, if you send an SMS with the reason for you getting out of the house, and one of them is like exercise, then you can get out of the house, but you have to wear a mask. You have to be very, very careful, you know. Anyway, so I did go to the waterfront and I just came back, and it was a beautiful sunset. And you know, when you're in lockdown and you can't really go out of the house that often, you come to appreciate these things a lot more, like the beautiful colors of the sunset, right? And the opportunity you have to walk on the promenade. Anyway, that's where I am at the moment.
So when
Which
did the
is my
lockdown
hometown.
start? It just started, didn't it? The lockdown in Greece?
Well, it just started for the rest of Greece, but some of the regions in the north have it already for a week. And we were one of the first two regions that got into lockdown a week ago.
Okay. But so
Because
it's
we had more cases than the rest.
okay. And is it the same kind of lockdown that they had in the springtime?
More or less, yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
Well, there are some differences, like, for example, primary schools remained open, while in March and the spring, all of them were closed, because they say that it is not as contagious, I mean, the disease of the virus from small children as it is from older ones. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what they say. But anyway, primary schools are still open. For how long, I don't know.
Yeah.
It'll show. We'll see. We'll see. But it's not looking good. Not really. And we don't have that many cases compared to other countries in total numbers, but as a percentage to the total of the population is quite a lot, because we're not that many really. We're only 11 million. So having almost, well, a bit less than 3,000 cases every day, that's too much. Although now it was less, but still.
Yeah. Yikes. So you just told me that you just got done with a tour though. You've been out.
Oh yeah. That was a scary, adventurous one with very bold, courageous Germans who came from Germany by bus to Greece and managed to get back to Germany by bus. Although some of them did come by plane, but most of them came by bus. And it was 12 days through the whole of Greece. And it was quite interesting because wherever we went, after we left, the place got into almost lockdown. Yeah. It was interesting, and you
Yeah.
had to be very, very flexible. They were flexible too, because they have to follow. I mean, you can't do it on your own. But anyway, we did it. We managed. We managed. But it was a challenge, definitely.
Yeah, I did, as I said, I did the same thing in Egypt in March. Like every time that we went someplace, like when we left, everything shut down.
Yeah.
We were literally the last people, the last bus at Abu Simbel. Like there was no other bus in a parking lot of for 400 buses. We had the only bus.
Isn't it a weird feeling when you realize that you with your bus and your group have become the sightseeing of the place?
Yeah, yeah, you are
Nobody
the thing
else.
everybody's staring at. Yes.
Yeah. It's a very awkward feeling. Very awkward. It was fun as well. It was a lot of adrenaline
Yeah. Well,
during those days.
it's
Yeah.
nice to kind of feel like we can actually do our jobs. I was just surprised when I talked to you that you said you had a group because I thought, well, who's traveling right now? But I guess that is true. When I was in Italy in the summertime, there were lots of Germans and English people traveling.
Well, the time when they came in October, and Greece and Cyprus were the only countries they could travel to. Yeah. Everything else was closed for Germans. So now everything is closed to everybody. But anyway, that's another story. We did have some tourists, but tourism, of course, was down about 90%, which
Wow.
makes sense. I mean, with everything that is going on, yeah, it was really bad. And it is even worse if tourism is quite high percentage of your GDP, and in Greece it is. It's about 20%.
Oh,
So that definitely will have its will have its toll next year. That's when we're going to really understand it, I think, because everything is also connected, and it's not just us tour guides and tourist guides and the agencies and the bus drivers. It's everybody else. I mean, the hotels and the restaurants and the local market, and even the local transportation. Everything, and everybody suffers from that. And and of
have you
course,
seen?
the ones who are working in tourism, then they don't make the money they used to do, so they don't spend that. So everybody else suffers as well. Anyway,
Yeah. Have you seen any restaurants, for example, that you've used for many years that have closed?
oh yeah, I have. I have. Some of them did not open at all this year, and many hotels did not open at all this year because it was not worth it,
Yeah.
since you could not use your full capacity. That's one thing, and then it's all the hygienic protocols, which of course are necessary, but on the other hand cost a lot of money. And
Yeah.
so many did not open. So we will see. Well, we call it the survival year. Whoever survives this year may be able to work next year, but that again, of course, it's a big question mark because we don't know how it's going to be. And I think that uncertainty is the worst thing of it all. Because
Yeah.
if we knew, this would be 1 year, and I believe I'm talking about for all of us, it's 1 year, okay, we'll do whatever we can, we'll get through it, but you don't really know what's going to happen. I think that's the worst part. So what we do is, we're Greeks, we're Mediterranean. So what we do is we take our coffee, we go to the waterfront, we meet friends with a social distance, always, mask on,
Yeah.
right? 1.5 meters distance. We sit on a bench and we talk and we drink and then we go home. That's all we do.
It's kind of the same thing here. It's like it would be really nice to, do stuff because I'm home. Like I'm not home so much and I'm home so much now, but yeah, there's nothing to do.
Yeah. Well, actually, there are a lot of things that I should do and a lot of work at home, but I just don't want to do anything. I don't want to. The more I sit at home, the more lazy I become. That's what I have realized. Just
Oh,
don't want to do a thing.
yeah, I think the same thing. I mean, should be able to conquer the world with all the free time I've had lately, but there are days
Yeah.
that I'm just like, nope, yeah, I'm not doing anything today.
And, and when we're working and we don't have that free time, and we really need the free time, and I always think, oh, if I had these days, then a few days I could do this and I could do that, and now I have all this time, and I'm always thinking, oh, okay, I have time. Tomorrow, we'll just do tomorrow, and I never
Yeah.
do anything. Anyway, the only thing I do a lot is I cook a lot and I eat a lot, and my scales now are protesting and in the last days. Last time they told me one by one, please. So now I'm avoiding stepping on them, just not stepping on them. Because we also think, that we have equal rights in this household, so nobody should be stepping on anybody else. I'm
Okay.
not stepping on my scales, and they're not stepping on me.
That's
That's how we solved it. Yeah, that's what we did.
Well, I
Well,
think that is everybody's pastime now, is just cooking and eating. So yeah,
it was a disaster. As far as my weight is concerned, it was really a disaster. But anyway.
Yeah, I think that's the business that's going to actually end up being the one to recover the quickest, is like the diet industry and the gym industry. Because everybody's been just sitting around too much for all these years, all these weeks. Yeah. No, I totally, I feel you on that one. I should get out running or doing yoga or whatever, but just the past week, especially with the election, I feel like I've been paralyzed. Like I can't, I'm like a slug, or actually, no, I feel like I'm like a deer that's been approached by a bear. I'm just staying really.
Yeah. Well, you had quite a week with your election.
Yeah.
Whole world was looking at the US. Anyway, congratulations, by the way. Yay.
So tell me, what was the impression from Greece of what you guys saw happening here? I have to imagine it must have looked insane.
Yes, it did. It did. To this part of the world, anyway, the whole election system is not quite clear. I mean, we know how it works, but we still cannot understand how you can have a system that where a candidate who has most of the votes could lose, and like as it happened last time. So this time, I think, after it was quite certain that Biden would win, everybody just sat with relief, not necessarily because it was that candidate, but because it was over. Finally, we know who won. I think in Greece that most people did prefer Biden, not necessarily because they support the Republicans or the Democrats. I mean, not really, but because we think that a change was necessary, let's say. And that does not only have to do with the image of a politician in social and mass media, because that's what we get, at least, but it also has to do with how he's reacting to our country and what kind of relationship there is between our country and his. So the belief here in general is that with this change, the relationships will be better, to our benefit, that is. We definitely do hope so, but we will see. Only time will tell.
Yeah, well, the good news this morning, my dad sent me as soon as he woke up, was that there is a vaccine that looks like it's effective. So that is good news for us, for sure. So
yeah, I was watching the news, but before, and they said there is a vaccine that so far has 90% success. So we will see. We will see. But we definitely do need that. I mean, the whole world needs that.
yeah, which for me, that just says, okay, well, that means next year is not necessarily off the table, because of course, the concern right now is we're at the end of the year and things haven't really improved. So how is it that travel is going to resume in any form next year? But
it's the second wave, which is a lot worse than the first one. A lot worse.
Yeah, exactly. So it sort of was a little bit of a bummer that for the first few weeks of this month, where I just kept thinking, well, I guess next year's gone too, but that's not necessarily true. I mean, something could change. So I hope so, at least for all of us.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I believe that.
Oh, she's got a phone call.
Yeah, telephone calls. Anyway, I don't think that it will be a good year. Not really, not yet. But I believe it will be better than this one, which is not very difficult, of course. Be better than this one. But anyway, people will still be reluctant. I think maybe a bit uncertain, a bit afraid still. And agencies will be as well. I mean, not that many tours will be offered, which makes sense. So we will see. It will take some time till we get back to normal. But okay, that's life.
Yeah, it is. And I think that it's just something that we all have to get through. But it's nice, I guess we're all going through it together in a way. It's sort of
Yeah.
like we have that unity right now that everybody's going through the same things. So
That is true, and I personally have come to appreciate the internet a lot more, giving me the opportunity to talk to friends and see friends who are abroad, even in my own country, but different cities, or different continents, like this moment. For example, talking to you, which is something that previously we could not do previously, 20 years ago, for
yeah,
example. But you always have this feeling that you can always talk to somebody or communicate with somebody, but when you're really in lockdown and you're at your home and you can't go anywhere, you come to appreciate this opportunity that you have for the internet a lot more than before, really a lot more, and use it a lot more as
yeah.
well.
I've
And
had
not only that.
Zoom on my phone for probably a good 5 years, and I had never used it except for I think I had two interviews once by some
Mm,
journalists that had contacted me, and that's the reason I
yeah.
had it. It was on my phone, but it never occurred to me, oh, I can actually call all of my friends in Europe and like chat with them whenever I want.
Or sometimes, with friends who are living abroad, what we do is we meet on Zoom or on Skype or whatever else. It doesn't matter, either for a coffee or for a wine. Everybody is with their coffee or with a wine. We just chat, and,
Yeah,
and we have even found some games that you can play over the internet and all together, and it's like being in the same room. I mean, it's not the same exactly, but it's the closest to it and the best you can do, and we do it,
yeah.
of course. And it's very funny because one of them is in Norway, one is in Germany, two are here in Greece, and we all play together. um, it's
That's
interesting. It's
yeah, yeah.
nice.
The kids for my son's birthday, I got him the Jackbox games, which are these games that you can basically do like that. You can put the game on like Zoom, and then
Mm.
everybody uses their device and the internet to be able to put an answer into for trivia or draw a picture or something like that. And it's so cool because it's like, oh yeah, we can play with anybody in the world this way. And how come none of us thought of this before? Like this was all existing before, but
Yeah, we just it's that feeling that you always can go or can call or can see if you want, but because you know that you always can, you never do. Mm. But the moment you realize you can't, then you start doing it. Mm. It's always like that.
yeah,
Always.
yeah, me too.
Yeah. It's like, for example, I live 3 minutes away from the archaeological museum in my town. So nobody goes there. Nobody. Maybe they have been to all the museums in other countries of Europe or in the world, but they are not going to the one next door because it's next door. They can always go, but they never do. So a few years ago, they were going to close to renovate in some of the rooms. And then some of the people I know, some friends of mine said, oh, the museum is going to close. We have to go. It's the same thing. Same idea is, oh, it's closing. I have to make it, but it's always there. It's 3 minutes, honestly, 3 minutes and on foot. And you just don't go because you can, so you leave it for later and you never do. Same thing.
And that's the big lesson maybe for all of us is that I think especially for people when it comes to travel, like how many people have put off these travel plans, and now you can't go. And maybe there are some people that never will be able to go at this point. So yeah, I think that is the big lesson to learn for in all things, not just travel, but in life. It's don't wait, right?
Because you never know what's coming. And but if we would talk about situation like this that we're living in now, and like a year ago or 2 years ago, I would just say that's like a science fiction movie. And now I feel like I'm living in a science fiction movie. And
Yeah.
so you really don't know. Here, of course, we try to make some fun out of it and laugh a bit about it. And we just say, oh, who knows what's coming next, like Godzilla maybe, or a volcano explosion, or aliens on Earth. Oh, who knows? But that's the next step, right? So you don't know what's coming. Yeah,
Yeah.
so live your life, just enjoy.
I now prescribe to the theory that you should never say things can't get any worse because things can always get worse.
Always. They can always get better, but they can always get worse as well.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah. So if you wake up and you're still alive and your cat is alive and your kids are alive and everything's okay,
Yeah.
be
I
grateful.
mean, this life never stops surprising me. As you know, the moment you just say it could not get worse than this, it does, and it's like, oops, surprise. And it's like I remember New Year's Eve. I just kicked, well, metaphorically, of course, but anyway, I kicked 2019 out of the door because that was a
Yeah.
horrible year, I thought. And now I think 2019 was great compared to 2020. And I'm really worried about 2021. You know, that joke is, how about, have you ever thought of 2020 being a trailer for 2021? I don't want to think about it. Like, I don't want to know.
Yeah, I'm gonna just attempt not to think about what next year. It's like I used to always think, oh, next year will be better. And now, yeah, no, I'm just gonna think next year, let's just hope it's equal, if nothing else. I mean, I don't want it to be equal, but I'm not gonna hope for better. I'm just gonna be like,
I'll,
okay,
I'll hope for better. I'll hope for better. You have to hope for more to get half of it. So
yeah.
hope for better and we'll see. Besides, we can't really do much. I mean, what's ever going to come will come. So we have a saying in Greece. We say, if you can't avoid it, try to enjoy it. So,
You
so
can't
try to, yeah, if you can't avoid something, you can't avoid an unpleasant situation, try to enjoy it as much as you can. I mean, some you can't, but anyway, try to make the best out of it, whatever that is. And
I like that. That's actually a really good idea. And so I think that the one of the points you brought up earlier before we started is so true. Some of these mentalities, these ideas that exist in Europe, sometimes as an American, I find them very frustrating. These sort of like um, pessimistic, because we're so optimistic in the US. We think our optimism can always win the day. That when I hear these things from Europeans, I'm always just like, oh, you guys are so pessimistic. But now I'm kind of like, yeah, actually, that's pretty wise to
well,
have.
it sounds pessimistic, but it's not really. It's like what we were talking before. It's like don't make any plans, because when people are making plans, God is laughing, because it means that you don't know what's coming and what's coming to you. So that means, um, if I may use that quote, seize the day. Definitely live your life, live today. That does not mean don't think about tomorrow at all, because that's wrong as well. But don't focus on tomorrow, focus on today, because you only live once and every day is unique. And well, when it's gone, it's gone. That's it.
Yeah. Well, I've always found it interesting in it, the Italian language, people don't use the future tense very often. I mean, it's not something like in English, we speak in the future tense a lot. But yeah, in Italian, I always thought that was really weird because I felt like I was spending time learning something that just never ever came up. And then I realized that there's something more to it, which is just that people don't, if you speak about the future in the future tense, that it makes it seem uncertain. There's a veil of uncertainty. Whereas if you do that in English, it's not, oh, I'll meet you tomorrow. Of course I'm going to meet you tomorrow because I'm saying I'm going to meet you tomorrow. But is there something like that in Greece where if you speak about things in a future,
Um,
they're
yes
uncertain?
and no. I mean, we do speak in a future tense, but when we use it, it's not necessarily something definitive. I mean, it's like I could say then, I'll see you tomorrow. I may see you, I may not see you, and that does not mean that I will really see you. Or we'll talk. Yeah, we will. At some point in the future, we'll see. Uh, yeah, I suppose that's a difference. Yeah, everything is a bit more vague. It could happen. It could also not happen.
And I have to think that that comes from long histories of well-made plans going south. Having
Definitely.
living through this moment, it's like, oh, now I understand why all my European friends are always behaving like that.
And especially, the south of Europe is quite different to the north of Europe or Central Europe. In the south, and I think the more to the southeast you go, the worse it gets. These are places where you really have to be very flexible to survive and have a good living. So, like in the north, for example, you can depend on your state a lot. In the south, you can't. And the state says something today and changes it tomorrow. Sometimes it changes it from morning to evening. So you really have to be very flexible, very open-minded, very, how should I say that, open to new solutions. Let's
Yeah.
say you always try to find a way to cope with what is happening, which is or which helps you also in life as well. When you have a difficult situation, you very easily think out of the box because that's what you're used to doing to survive in your country, and that helps a lot. So I suppose it has to do with that as well, and that has to do with really very long history of being like that. And it's not just now; it always has been like that. And now that I've come to think about 5,000 years of known Greek history, it's always been like that. So yeah, you have to be flexible.
Still very much a part of Greek history from 5,000 years ago, right? And actually, that was something I wanted to talk to you about just in general, is that you're from a town, Thessaloniki, that maybe a lot of people don't know much about. I mean, we all know about Athens, we all know about, Santorini, but
Mm.
not a lot of people know about your town, but that was a very important city in the past, right?
It was, and still is in Greece, because it's the second largest, and we have the most important port of the north, and after Piraeus, which is in Athens. And in the past, it used to be very important as well. I mean, it always was important because it's a place of crossroads. Mm. So yeah, and it was founded by the successor of Alexander the Great. Then his name was Cassander, and he married the half sister of Alexander the Great, so same father, different mother. And he founded two cities. So the second city he founded was this one, and he named it after his wife. And so her name was Thessaloniki, and that's how we call the city till today. And husbands don't do that anymore. I think he was the last one. Anyway, but it's also the place where where the city is situated is of great strategic importance. Because we have the port, we're very close to mountains as well. We have a big plain and to cultivate, and it was, as I mentioned before, it has always been crossroads. Like as here, the roads that connect the south to the north and the east to the west meet. Mm. So it was always a very, very important city for trading, for example, um, and shipping
And it
as
was
well.
it was a Byzantine capital as well, right? I have a real interest in Byzantine history, so that was a
It
Byzantine.
was not a capital, not really, but it was always a very important city in the Byzantine Empire. But it was not a capital.
Oh,
No,
okay.
no. It was always, and let's say at the end of the Byzantine Empire, it was the second most important after Constantinople.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
there's a lot of like things you can see there from the Byzantine era, though, isn't there? Like,
oh yeah, there are churches. There are churches. We have about 15 UNESCO monuments, and these include some of the towers. Towers are of the 15th century. We have half of the wall of the city still standing because they did not have the money to tear it down. That's why it's still standing, thank God. So out of the 8 kilometers, and I'm not sure how much that is in miles, but anyway, 8 kilometers in total, so about 4 kilometers are still standing. I think 1.5 kilometers is 1 mile. And the, the walls are dated mainly between the 12th and the 14th century. And then we have churches, churches from the 11th century till, well, the Byzantine ones are 11th century, let's say post-Byzantine as well till the 16th. And then we have some the 17th, 18th, 19th as well. And there are some Roman ruins as well in the city. There is a part of the ancient forum, the Roman forum, and there are remains of the palace of Emperor Galerius, who had moved his capital and then his political seat in the early 4th century into Thessaloniki. And what else do we have? Oh, we have his Arch of Triumph, also early 4th century, and of course the Rotonda, which is a round building, a lot smaller than the Pantheon, but the idea is the same. And of course, a lot later, early 4th century AD. And that did not have, well, it did have marble originally, but there's nothing left of that. But there are still wall mosaics in there. So it's quite interesting. And, as you say in Rome, for example, or in other cities that have a long old history. And in Thessaloniki, you have the same thing. You just walk through the modern city and then you just turn around the corner and in front of you is a church of the 12th century. And then you turn around the next corner and you have a 16th century Ottoman bath. And then you turn around again and you have Roman ruins. Then you come to the modern promenade. And it's really interesting.
So how would you compare Thessaloniki to Athens? How do those two stack up?
Very different.
Yeah.
Very different thing. It's a completely different ambience, completely different character in the city. It's, well, Thessaloniki is smaller, definitely. It's about 1/4 of Athens, which is good, because 1/4 means about 1.2 million people. That's enough. It's the center is on the water. I mean, Athens is on the water as well, but it's not the center, not really.
It's not really on the water. I mean, there is.
No, not really. I mean, the center is not. Thessaloniki is the center. The city was built on the water from the beginning. And Athens is more like a round city. You can drive around it and go from one neighborhood to the other. And Thessaloniki is an elongated city. So if you want to go from the north, from the west to the east, you have to drive through the city. So it makes very, very different. And the center is very different. I mean, you just, I don't think I can really describe it with words. And it's a very alive city, very, very alive. We have about 120,000 students. And we're a university city, but the campus of the university is in the center. It used to be outside once, like 150 years ago, but now it's in the center. And say 150 years because of the area, but the university is not that old. It's from 1926. But still, there are 4 universities in the city. We have the biggest one of the whole of Greece and the Balkans, and the Aristotle University that has 90,000 students. That's 90. And so in total, there are about 120. So, when there is youth, when there are students, there is life.
That must be hard right now for the students being locked down. Are they all on remote school then?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And of course, not all of them are from Thessaloniki, and some of them are from here, but they're all from all over Greece. But it's interesting because students usually don't work. Some of them do, but most of them don't. And they do have more time to go out and money to spend. Money to spend meaning if you don't have any obligations, like your rent or whatever are paid by your parents, and you have some money to spend, then you spend it on going out, for example, more than other people do. So we have lots of restaurants, tavernas, bars, clubs, cafes. It's a very, very alive city, but we also do have museums, exhibitions, happenings, concerts, concerts. There's a lot to do, and it's a city of culture as well. And we imagine that we have 3 modern art museums, apart from everything else. What? One was not enough? No, we have 3. We have a cinematography museum, a photography museum, and then, of course, all the classic museums like archaeological, Byzantine, folklore museum, and all of that. It's really interesting. There are lots of things to do in this city.
So when you do tours, you lead your own independent tours as well. So what are your favorite itineraries that you do with your own company? What do you like to do with people? Because
Well,
the typical stuff, obviously, but I have a feeling you do other things too, right?
well, I love the North, and I love the North because not only because it's the place where I grew up, but it's also a place which is not very known. And Greece is a very small country. In square miles, we're only 51,000. We have the size of Alabama. It's the only thing we have in common. But anyway, that's what we have. 51,000 square miles is not much. That's in kilometers, 132,000 square kilometers. So that's a very small country. It's very mountainous. We have lots of islands, and every region is very different from the others. Very, very different. So the north is completely different, the central part of the north mainly, than all the rest. And its landscapes are not known, its nature is not known, the cities are not known, and it's not just Thessaloniki. Thessaloniki is the biggest and the most important one, but there is more there as well. And its history, it's not known. Like, for example, many people confuse the Greek part of Macedonia with our neighboring country, which is now officially called North Macedonia. So there is no relevance to between the two countries. There was something completely different. And the ancient Macedonian kingdom was here, where we are in Greece. And people don't know that the two capitals, for example, of the ancient Macedonian kingdom are here. They're very close to Thessaloniki, both of them, and both because the capital was moved at some point. But in the old capital, which is called Vergina today, but the ancient name was Eye. Anyway, there was the royal cemetery, and according to an oracle, then all Macedonian kings had to be buried there. So in the 70s, in the late 70s, and during the excavations there, the unlooted tomb of Philip II, who was the father of Alexander the Great, was found. And also the tomb of the son of Alexander the Great. So the Great was the third, his son was the fourth, Alexander as well. And of course, there are theories against that, but there are many arguments and why we believe that these are their tombs, because there are no names. There's nothing. But it's the dating, it's the finds, and the tomb is so rich in the gold and the silver that was found in there. Imagine that the golden box that was used as a larnax and for the ashes and the bones of the deceased, because it was a cremation, and it weighs 8.3 kilos, 24 carats of gold. That's a lot. I mean, 1 kilo is about 2.2 pounds. That's really a lot. And all of that is on display. I mean, you can visit these tombs. You don't go into the tomb, but you see the facade of the tomb. And there is a lot of space then in the building in front of those tombs, because there's a building that was built above those tombs to protect them. And you can see everything that was found in there.
Wow.
So it's an amazing place, just simply amazing, and people just don't know about it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So northern Greece then is a place that should be on people's lists if they want to see something.
Mount Olympus is here, for example. Yeah, because everybody goes to Santorini and Mykonos, which are beautiful. No, there's no dispute about that. Definitely, they're beautiful. But there is so much more to see, so much more. And that's why I usually propose the north.
So how many days does it take to see the north, do you think?
Oh God, well, if you want to see it all, you need a month, definitely. But what we do is usually we do 10 to 15 days, sometimes even a week, depending on how much time, because the travelers have. But usually most of the tours are 10 to 15 days.
Fun.
Some do 12, some do 13.
Okay. And so you are the guide and your husband drives, is that right?
Usually, yes. Sometimes we have a different drivers. It depends, because sometimes he cannot, but usually, yes. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. So then people can kind of like put together whatever itinerary they want. That's really neat.
Yes. Yeah,
So,
yeah, we do that. Tailor-made tours. Yeah, absolutely.
so you know
I
what?
mean, we
I've
can
never
always recommend, but they can do whatever, they can choose whatever they want to see, and they would just put it together in
yeah.
an itinerary that makes sense.
So what is it that drew you to being a tour guide?
Oh, well, it just happened, but I'm very glad that it did. I originally wanted to become an archaeologist, but um, well, there is a lot of work in Greece for an archaeologist, but there is not really a lot of money.
Ah,
And that's because all archaeologists, or almost all of them, are public offices. I mean, if you don't work in the public sector, usually you don't have work at all. And that is very, very difficult. Because, sorry, um, there are exams every 8 to 10 years. Then you're sent wherever you're needed. You start at minimum wage, and it's very, very difficult. And there are lots of archaeologists who are unemployed. So I was thinking of doing something else because I have studied German philology, which is practically German culture and literature. And I was thinking of uh, opening my own language school. And then I talked to friends of mine who were attending the School of Guides, because there is a Greek state School of Guides. And they were telling me about what they were learning there and the excursions and trips and all of that in Greece. And I thought, well, that's the closest to archaeology you could do. So I did it. And then I got my first assignment and I liked it. And that was it. I realized that that was what I actually wanted to do. And that's what I'm still doing. Many years later, it's like 20, 25 or 26, I'm not sure. Time flies.
That's interesting. That's a very similar approach that I came to, because I wanted to be an a professor of architectural history. That was the thing that I was planning to do. And then I started this job just as like an interlude between being an architect and going back to get my degrees. And then it's like, oh, actually, this is a way to teach architectural history in front of the building, not just on slides. So
even better.
yeah, it's better. It is
Yeah.
better. I mean, it's like to sit
It
around
is.
with a bunch of slides is fine. I mean, and you can get your point across, but to actually take people to walk them through buildings, I think is
Mhm.
much more interesting. So
Yeah. And it is true that guiding contains a big amount of teaching as
yes.
well. That is absolutely true. But communicating with people and going beyond teaching, because not just that, it's just more fulfilling for me, at least. And although I love teaching and I've done that for many years, I taught German, but still meeting people coming from different countries, meeting different mentalities, nationalities, and uh, going through different itineraries and always adjust it, not just to what people want to see, but that to their mentality and nationality as well. I mean, it's completely different guiding Chinese in English. I don't speak Chinese. Then, and completely different guiding Americans, completely different guiding Germans or Greeks. It's different. You always adjust because to your public. And just this interaction and communicating with people, I find it so reviving and I just love it. And there is one more benefit to this profession. Not all guests are great, and not all people are the same. So even if you have somebody you just don't get along that well, you try your best, and 5 days, 7 days, 10 days, 15 days, he's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
don't know, the next
heard
one.
a few years ago an interesting thing about that. When I've had people on my tours that just really rubbed me the wrong way, when I was a young guide, I would just be like, oh, it's them, they're terrible, whatever. Yeah, it's just 15 days. I can get through it. It's fine. But then I started thinking, what is it about that person that's bothering me? Or why is it that that person is crabby? Or why is it that I feel like I'm getting negative vibes off of them? And a few years ago, I just thought, I'm going to lean into that. Like, if I feel like I meet somebody who is negative, or I'm getting bad vibes off of, or I just am having a negative reaction, maybe that's me. I don't know. But what's been interesting is that when I have kind of leaned into those people and been like, hey, let's you and me go hang out. I can tell you hate me, but we'll have coffee because I want to know why you hate me, that kind of thing. It's always been interesting because I've found that some of those people are the ones that really want to open up. Like they want to, they just don't know. I don't know. I don't know how to describe it, but there have been many times when I've invited people out to coffee that I was basically getting totally 100% negative vibes off of. And then you sit down and you just say, tell me about your life. Tell me about who you are. Why are you here? Like what brought you to sit here at this table with me today? And it's so interesting when you hear people's backstories, because then you find out, oh, you know, that they're really in a bad mood because their wife died a month ago. And you're like, oh, that would have been good to know.
Well, usually it's something completely different that's the matter, and or is the reason for this behavior, and we should not take it personally. But you're there, and it's easier to take it out on you. And, but there's always, or almost always, a different reason. And many times when they open up, 'cause not all of them do that, but many times when they open up, you realize what it is, and you get along better afterwards. And I used to guide a lot of trips with singles. And the idea was very clever, actually, because many people don't find a companion to travel with for various reasons, like, for example, the time frame, or sometimes the cost of the trip, or the country they want to travel in, or whatever reason. And the idea was, you know, come to a trip where everybody is alone. So you will find definitely somebody in that group of people with whom you will get a bit better along. You'll be able to drink coffee or do something anyway together. And of course, there were always some people who were alone because nobody wanted to be with them. Yeah. So these trips were very, very challenging many times, but they were very often a revelation about people's pasts and what made them behave that way, because at the end most of them would open up, and it was well, almost like being to the psychiatrist sometimes,
Oh,
you know.
yes. Oh, yes.
But
Yeah.
it was very, very interesting, very, very interesting, and it was challenging, definitely. And although I did not really want to do them in the beginning, then I liked them so much because you came so close to many people, you know, but not too close. And you should not let them get into your own personal, not just space, but you know, also your mind.
Yeah.
But still, it was one of the greatest experiences I've had in
Well,
in
that's
in,
so
in this
interesting.
job.
Well, and I think that that's true, is that when I think back on 20 years of guiding, what are the things I remember? Do I remember hiking in the Alps? Do I remember riding a gondola? No, the things I remember that stick out the most are those human interactions and those times that I really feel like I turned around a relationship with somebody, or I helped them out in some way that was memorable, or I don't know. There's just all these interesting experiences I can kind of think that at the time maybe were stressful or seemed not great, but in retrospect I'm like, yeah, that was a really meaningful thing. I mean, I'm thinking of a woman once she was so nasty to me through most of the tour, just like saying mean things just under her breath all the time. And then she had a medical emergency and I had to take her to the hospital, and I sat in the hospital and held her hand while she ended up having kind of a minor surgery. And yeah, and that woman, she and I corresponded for many years. This is a long time ago. This is probably at least maybe 15 years ago. But she and I corresponded for a long time after that. We became actually really good friends. So it's kind of a funny thing. Like you just never know the things that are going to last. And the psychology thing, you're so right. I have done multiple like interventions where you have to get like, there was a group of families traveling together that wasn't getting along, and they were all fighting amongst each other to the point where it was disrupting the rest of the group. And I had to sit down and like sort out their family issues.
Like couple counseling.
Like couples counseling. Yeah. So it's so funny. People say, oh, you're a tour guide. Like, what kind of that's not a real job. And I'm like, oh, honey, let's see. We are teachers. We are psychiatrists. We are amateur doctors, amateur dentists. Like, what else? I mean, the list goes on, right?
Oh God, yeah. Well, people don't realize how difficult it is many times. many times when I tell to people that I'm a tourist guide, they say, first of all, oh, how many countries have you been to? But, well, I only guide in mine. And to all the rest, it just goes tourist, me at least. And then they tell me, oh, lucky you, paid vacation. Okay, just come and do it once and then we'll talk about it. But it is a profession that definitely gives you a lot, and it takes a lot as well. I mean, the energy that is needed, and the time that it takes, and you don't really have all the vacation all your friends do. You're not there at weekends. You're not better than I do, but it does give you a lot, and I just would not change it. Then for the world, definitely not.
Feel the
Yeah.
same way. It's like, I mean, I've missed funerals and weddings and births and things like that because I've been
Yeah.
having to on the road. But yeah, if I look at the scope of my life, I wouldn't change a day. I wouldn't change it.
No,
And
no,
really.
neither.
So then that leads me to a question that I've always wanted to ask you. Have you seen that movie, My Life in Ruins?
Oh God, yes.
And what do you think of that movie?
Okay. Well,
What?
things are not like that at all, as in the movie. I remember after that movie, I had my groups of Americans, and I would tell them many times, well, do you remember that scene in the movie where she says that we have to visit this and this and this and this and that in one day? Yeah, they said. And do you remember that she said, well, we're not going to do that and we're going to go to the beach? Yes, they said. Well, we're not. We're going to the visits. But on the other hand, um, what you see in that movie has to do a lot with memories of the 70s. And it's a very strange mixture of, I don't know, a Greece of old days. And you don't find that anymore. Definitely. I mean, I have not really experienced that. And of course, it is funny. It is a funny movie, definitely. And it would be great if all drivers would have looked like the one who plays
Yeah.
in the movie. He's
Yeah.
one of the most handsome Greek actors. That is true.
Yeah.
And well, they don't usually. No, they don't. Um, but like for example, when she says that we have to visit this and this and this and that, then if you know what she's talking about, she covers the whole of Greece in the itinerary that she's supposed to cover in one day is something that you cannot cover in one, but you need three. There's a lot of exaggerating in that movie, but it's a sweet one, even if it's a bit too, uh, let's call it exaggerated. Anyway.
My favorite part of that movie, well, there's so much about it that I like that's just true about tour guiding. Like that's a movie I would just love to sit down and watch with every guide I know, because there's so many things about it that just feel really true. Because it was obviously written by a tour, I mean, I think, or a tour guide at least consulted. But my favorite part is when she gets to the crappy hotel and all of the tour members have finally gotten up the elevator into their rooms, and she's exhausted for trying to check them in because I'm like, oh, this. And then the elevator breaks. And it's just like, of course the elevator breaks after all of your tour members have checked in and you're exhausted and you've had to deal with 1,000 problems. And then you can't use the elevator. Like that is so true. But I love her. Yeah, but I love how when she's dragging her bags up the stairs and she's so pissed, she's like, every time the Greek people to fix something, they just say, now we dance. And what is it with dancing? And it was just, it cracks me. I feel that so much, like sometimes in Italy and other places where it's just like the sort of spirit like that. It's something that I love about them, but then there are days that you hate that about them. Right?
Yeah.
But
it
do Greeks really
definitely is a sorry?
Greeks really do that, just dance all the time.
Oh, no. No, we don't. We don't. No. But also in that movie, as well as in the other movie of Nia Vardalos, the Big Fat Greek Wedding, which was hilarious, the first one, at least. What you see is what you always see when you have immigrants in a different country, meaning that when you immigrate, then you try to make up a living in the new country, but you try to keep the memory of your own, because that's the bond to where you have come from. And so, but that memory remains unchanged. So you may have not returned to your home country for 20 years, but all the traditions you kept unchanged. But your home country has changed a lot. So you go back after 20 or 30 years and you can't recognize it anymore. And that is actually what you see in those movies. These are all the memories of the parents of how Greece used to be when they left. But if you come to the country today, it's completely different. But because we, all of us, have somebody, a relative, a friend abroad, and we have all experienced that, all of us. So it was so, I'd say, something that we knew so well and that we could recognize and identify with when we saw these movies. And maybe that's why they for us, they were more touching than maybe to other people, apart from being hilarious anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, but you always see that. I have an uncle in Australia, in Melbourne. So he left from Greece when he was 18 years old. He returned, and when he became 73 a few years ago. He did not come before that, because till 71, you're still considered to be a deserter. And so because he did not serve in the army. So he waited till he became 73. But he had Greece in his mind still as he remembered it from when he was 18.
Wow.
Now, 18 to 73 is a very long period of time. So he came back trying desperately to recognize what he could remember. And he said at the end that this is not the country I know. I'm very glad that I managed to recognize some places, a corner in a street thing. But this is not a country I'm feeling comfortable in anymore. And I'm never going to come back again till the day I die. And I prefer to stay in Australia, which has been my home for 50 plus years,
Yeah.
and keep that memory as I have it in my mind. Same thing. So it's what we call these bittersweet movies, because also of that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, I mean, really for anybody too. My hometown, I haven't been to in years, and I'm afraid to go back because I'm sure it would be something I wouldn't recognize. So time marches on, unfortunately. But
yeah, it does. It does. Which is a good thing on the other hand, because if everything would remain unchanged, that would mean that society would not progress, would not develop, would not change either, which would have been bad. Society needs to change. Society needs to develop. So everything develops with it and changes with it. And
Yeah.
change is always something we're afraid of, because the results are the unknown. So you don't know what's going to happen after every change. And we always feel comfortable with what we know. But you cannot always keep things from changing or stop time.
But we can get memories. That's the idea, is you can gather
Oh,
memories.
it's very, very important, because memories are a very big part of what we are and who we are.
Yeah.
So what are we without memories, right?
That's a really, yeah. Well, that's a good notion for us to end on, my friends. So thank you so much for joining me today for this lovely conversation. And I just want to let everybody out there know that Anastasia is a hoot to travel with, by the way. We've traveled together before, and she is a party. She is so much fun. So how can people out there find you? How can they find your tours?
Well, they can, because we're trying to put up a new site. We don't have a site at the moment, so we're trying to do a new one. But at the moment, they can email me, and
Okay.
they can find my email, and they can find me on Facebook as well with my name,
Great.
which maybe is easier.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll put up a link for you on there so people can find you. So, and as soon as you have a website, you have to let me know because I would like to do the Northern
I
Greece.
will.
So that may be something you and I should do together in the not so
Yeah,
distant.
we should. Oh, you're gonna love it. You're gonna love it, and it's going to be a big surprise in a very positive sense.
Okay. All right. You're on, sister. We're going to do that. So
Good. We will.
sooner rather than later. All right, everybody. So
It was great. Thank you very, very much.
yeah, it's so nice to see you. It's been way too long. Let's do it more often. So
Yeah.
thank you everybody out there for watching Coffee Chat this morning. So again, this is Anastasia Gaitanou from Thessaloniki in Northern Greece. And you can connect with her on Facebook. Just be sure to go to the link, Anastasia, and just comment so people can see where you're at and they can find you that way. Tomorrow, just to let you know, same time slot, we're going to have on my friend Alexandra from Romania, who was just recently voted into becoming like the deputy mayor of one of the deputy mayors of Bucharest. So she's really cool. She's a tour guide and a friend of mine. So we're going to see her tomorrow. So if you guys are interested in another conversation with somebody somewhere else far away, please join us again at 10 o'clock tomorrow. Thanks a lot, Anastasia.
Bye-bye.